All right. 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 Good morning. Good morning. It is your boy Genesis. And you know what time it is. It is currently 8:24 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 18th of July 2025. How are you doing this morning? God is the greatest. America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. But with that being said, I got to say this. Doesn't matter if you are a Republican or a Democrat. What matters is you are American and you love the United States, you support the United States, you believe in the idea of this beautiful land right here. And God has blessed this land for sure. So I just got to say, God is the greatest. Thank God for his blessings on our lives and on America. All right. With that being said, a couple of news has gone viral from yesterday till this morning. Of course, the OG, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has a lot to say concerning the files, and also um, he is suing some news outlet for, according to him, fake news. And we're going to check out other issues that has also been brewing up. The president of the United States was also diagnosed with some sort of infection, I guess, but it's not chronic. It's not. I mean, they call it chronic, whatever, but it's not. Um, it's sort of like something most Americans deal with, so it's nothing to be worried about. He is still in good health. But with that being said, we're gonna read out what he posted concerning the Jepstein files, like I call it. Of course, it is Epstein, but I call it Jepstein. Now, this happened yesterday, 9:07 p.m. All right, so he says here, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jepstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bundy to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrat should end right now. Told you guys, this man has absolutely nothing to hide, because if there was something that maybe the left had on him while he was going from the courtroom to the campaign grounds, while his home was being raided, while he was having an attempt on his life, he would have never been the president of the United States. They had anything, any ounce of evidence against this man, they would have used it against him. So now he's going all the way in. Of course, he said any uh, evidence that she had, she should put it out. He said it like 3 days ago, but now he just mentioned this last night. He said, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jepstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bundy to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. So, does this make you happy? Does this satisfy you? And I'm talking to both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party and all and every American watching this show or concerned about the Jepstein files. Does this make you happy? Are you now calm and relaxed that your commander in chief, the 45th and now the 47th president of the United States, has nothing to hide because he's ordered Attorney General Pam Bundy to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. Because a lot of people are like, well, if he is the president of the United States and he has anything to do with the Jepstein situation, it should be, questioned. So now he's proven to every American that you can trust him because he's ordered his AG to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony. Told you guys, man, have some belief and some faith in your commander in chief. Have a little faith in your commander in chief. So, with that being said, he also mentioned a couple of um, update on the Wall Street Journal. I think he is suing them because they printed a fake letter according to the commander in chief. We're going to share that information with you right now. He posted this on Truth Social. Of course, that is his social media when he was sort of banned from Twitter, now X, and Facebook and Instagram. That was just wild. But anyway, he's created the Truth Social. But here we go. He said here, this was about 50 minutes after he posted what we just read now. He said, the Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter supposedly to Jepstein. There's these are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam, that he shouldn't print the fake story, but he did. And now I'm going to sue his ASS off, meaning he's going to sue his ass off. The commander in chief, yeah. He said, and that of his third rate newspaper. Thank you for your attention to this matter, DJT. All right. He's not letting anything slide because look, there's a lot to be thankful for in the United States. We saw the big beautiful bill has passed. We see the numbers by the border. It is absolutely low. We see inflation rate, but yet the Fed is not cutting the interest rate. So there's so much to be grateful for in the United States. But for some reason, people are so concerned about the Jepstein files. Now, I'm not saying it's not important, but there's so much to focus on, like the parents who lost their family to the drug use, and also the families who lost children and family members in the Texas flood. There's so much we could be talking about, but for some reason, the media is pushing this narrative on this Jepstein issue. All right, he also posted this, of course, about 28 minutes ago on Truth Social. He said, if there was a smoking gun on Epstein, why didn't the Dems who controlled the files for 4 years and had Garland and Comey in charge use it? That is a valid question. It says, if there was a smoking gun on Jepstein, why didn't the Dems who controlled the files for 4 years and had Garland and Comey in charge use it? And then it says, because they had nothing. Because they had nothing. And that's just the facts. Because nobody on the left wanted Donald J. Trump to be the next president of the United States as of last year. So, of course, they would have used it against him, but they had nothing. So, everybody needs to come to the realization that if the media is going hard on this issue, it's probably just to demean and belittle every accomplishment that the Trump administration is currently achieving. Look at the numbers. Look at the stock market. Look at the inflation rate. This man is making renegotiating trade deals, and people are so concerned about things that even the left wouldn't drop any information about it. But now it's not about the left or the right. It's about doing the right thing. So I admire what he said, saying the AG Pam Bondi should drop anything that is pertinent to information, any information that is pertinent concerning the Jepstein file. So everybody can be calm, cool, and relaxed now. All right, here we go. Concerning his issue, he was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. And like I said, it's nothing to be worried about because most Americans deal with this issue. Here we go.
White House press briefing there hit a number of topics, most notably, or among the notable topics, we heard about the president's medical condition, with the White House press secretary there saying that he was evaluated by the White House medical unit after questions and after the president noticed some swelling in his legs. And they said in an effort of transparency that tests were performed. I want you to just listen to the sound here.
Speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Laboratory testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here.
All right, let's bring in emergency physician Dr. Jeremy Faust to talk a little bit about what we are hearing there. Doctor, take us through this because it's really two things that we're hearing. Chronic venous insufficiency, AB9, I think I heard her say when it came to the swollen ankles that have been observed. And then also she's saying bruising on the back of the hand due to aspirin regimen combined with a lot of hand shaking. Take us through this.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. First thing, I think that we're just hearing a lot of medical jargon such that even you're just mentioning a benign. I think you're hearing her just saying a benign condition. A benign condition is what is
a
what
benign and
is
common condition,
which is great, right? But it's always good to unpack all of these terms. So what happened here was good medical care so far, and it's basically not alarming information, and it's not surprising. The president is an older man. I believe he just turned 79 years old. He has had risk factors for this condition that they're talking about, which is called chronic venous insufficiency. And what that really means is that the blood that goes out of the heart has to return to the heart through the veins. And as we age, some of that blood flow back to the heart, that's called venous return, just slows down in some patients more than others. And that can lead to things like swelling. That can look like things that many people would be familiar with, like varicose veins. So this is a pretty normal part of aging, and especially for someone in the overweight to obese category, which is where the president has always been. And but the bigger concern, which was addressed in that information that we just heard about, is that symptoms like this do need to be evaluated for more serious conditions, and that is what happened.
And I want to bring in cardiologist Dr. Bernard Ashby as well to this conversation, because to Dr. Faust's point, as the White House press secretary laid out, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease in what they laid out, even with this diagnosis of chronic venous insufficiency. Can you just break down what the concern may have been or would have been if there was deep vein thrombosis, and why the need to make that distinction was necessary? We might be having some audio issues, but Dr. Faust, can if you're still on the line, can I just pose that same question to you, just about the deep vein thrombosis and why that distinction is necessary?
Yeah, this is the important thing. When people have symptoms, they want to get looked at to find out if there's a danger, or whether it's a relatively less dangerous, benign condition that's just causing some discomfort. And as stated, a deep vein thrombosis is what the concern would be. That is an abnormal blood clot. Our blood is always on this balance between how thick and thin it should be, and we have amazing bodies that keep our blood in a really narrow range of how thin or thick it should be for our own safety. Too thin, you bleed too much. Too thick, you make clots, which blocks off blood supply to vital organs. And so when if your blood is a little too thick or a little too slow in terms of getting back to the heart, which is this condition that the president does have, these blood clots can start to accumulate in places where they're not supposed to, or get too large to be safe. And the concern there would be, when that blood clot occurs, that it can actually then break off of the vessel where it's forming, usually in the legs, and travel up back to the heart. And then when it gets pumped back out, it can cut off blood supply chiefly to the lungs, but it can also go other places depending on individuals' anatomy and abnormalities. But these dangerous blood clots, they can be very dangerous. Some people can get these conditions diagnosed. They're called pulmonary embolisms in the lungs, blood clots of the lungs. And they can be benign and they can be treated. But some of them can be life-threatening. So it's an amazing spectrum of illness that we diagnose in ERs, where people have these blood clots, and the treatment can really vary from blood thinners by mouth or IV. But in serious life-threatening cases, some of these blood clots need to be removed actually in medical procedures, or we need to give medications that break those clots apart. So it's a spectrum of disease that can go from mild to life-threatening, and that is why the president was evaluated, to see if he had that condition, a blood clot, and fortunately he did not.
Yeah, really good context.
So you said all of that just to say, fortunately, he did not. She said it. He doesn't have anything critical. I mean, geez. So you explained all of that for what? To say, thank God he didn't have. Man, yo.
Text there. And Dr. Ashby, as you're listening to what we're hearing from the White House here, they're describing this as benign, right? As something that isn't harmful to the president at this point in time. But let's take a look at his lifestyle, because he obviously has a very demanding travel schedule at times. We know that can.
This man, President Donald J. Trump, even on the day that they took pictures of his hands and said his feet were swollen, he was in New Jersey celebrating with the soccer team that won the championship. He was jumping on stage. Oh, my goodness. While they were taking a picture of his hand, he was answering questions for like 45 minutes on his way to the airport. When he got to the airport, he was answering more questions. On the plane, he was answering more questions. When he landed, he had another press conference. I mean, Jesus, what do you want?
Certainly cause risk factors to circulation. There is his age. There is his history of, certainly he does play quite a lot of golf, but he doesn't have a history of really intensive cardiovascular activity. How do all of these things work together, and what kind of treatment or management might a doctor be looking at over time for someone of this age who is traveling a lot and sitting a lot?
Yeah, so it appears that the White House physicians were also concerned about more than meets the eye, meaning that they did a number of tests that I overheard you say, or the edit say earlier. He had a echocardiogram, a BNP, which is a brain natriuretic peptide, and lower extremity ultrasounds. So essentially, they were covering all their bases, meaning that they were screening him for heart failure, which is a common cause of lower extremity swelling. In addition to that, they were concerned with increased pressure in his heart. So they did an echocardiogram and a BNP. And if those were abnormal, then you would be concerned with heart failure. So looking at the president's lower extremities or his legs, he had bilateral swelling. So it's less likely that's related to a clot in the vein and more likely related to things like heart failure, kidney failure, which are things that they alluded to and said that that was not the case. Now taking a step back, looking at the entire case, the president is obese. He is older, and I don't know if he has hypertension, but that's very likely or very common in his age group, particularly with his body habitus. So when you do have a condition like lower extremity swelling, bilateral, and a diagnosis of venous insufficiency, the question is it intrinsic to the veins? Meaning does the venous insufficiency that he has, is it related to bad valves, or is it related to increased pressure coming from the heart? And those can be related to things like weight, also things like sleep apnea, which he fits the kind of the prerequisite for, meaning that he's a big guy, he's obese, and more likely to have sleep apnea, which is a condition where you stop breathing at night. And that can also increase the pressure in the lungs, which can then cause a backflow to the body, and it can be seen as lower extremity swelling or what you saw in the picture. So again, even though he's diagnosed with a benign condition, but venous insufficiency by itself doesn't necessarily mean it's benign. The question is what's causing the venous insufficiency. And so I would want to know whether or not he has any evidence of, again, increased pressures in the heart or increased pressures in the lungs, which can be contributing to that. And if so, what is the primary cause of that? Is it sleep apnea? Is it heart failure? But again, this is all speculation. But I wouldn't take the benign diagnosis on his face. I would want to work him up a little bit more to figure out exactly why he has venous insufficiency.
And the White House said they would send through some more details from what was announced in the press conference. So we'll look for a lot of the...
Man, these folks, they never get tired. They just never get tired. All right,
Jeffrey Epstein now threatening to derail Trump's agenda. On Capitol Hill tonight, Epstein is front and center. Several Republican holdouts are saying they will not move forward on a vote on Trump's DOJ cuts unless they get Epstein too. And House Speaker Mike Johnson's back is up against the wall because the House faces a Friday deadline at midnight. So we're counting down here to act on Trump's cuts to the government funding package. And GOP holdouts say that their constituents are the ones that are demanding answers on Jeffrey Epstein, as MAGA media is not letting up.
Trump has done a F minus. I mean, my God, it's worse than an F. I mean, it's like a 0 on the Streisand affecting and not having clarity and flip-flopping back and forth. It's just been horrifying.
Trump did this to himself. And it's not even about, let's say, Epstein hooking him up with some hot 20-year-old 40 years ago. It's the fact that he came out and insulted his base and said it was a hoax. And so the whole thing is just crazy. And I don't want to get into all of it now. We'll get into it coming up, but it's just going to get worse.
So that's all you say? Man, bro.
The man you heard speaking right there at the end was someone who spent time in jail because of his role leading up to January 6th. All right, so the people who are saying this aren't people who were on the fence about Trump. These are the people who vaulted Trump back to the White House, like Nick Fuentes, the white nationalist whom Trump has hosted at Mar-a-Lago.
And now he says, if you're not on board with the Epstein cover-up, oh, I don't want your support. You're a weakling.
He never said cover up. He never said cover up. He never said cover up. Yo.
You suck. You are fat. You are a joke. You are stupid. You are.
What? What are you doing? What? I can't take this man serious.
Not funny. You are not as smart as you think you are. We are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history.
Who is this?
I mean, to think that those words came out of his mouth, they're going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. I mean, these are people who made their names on the MAGA movement, inside the MAGA movement, by support of Trump. And their attacks are heard by millions and millions. And then there's Elon Musk, who's also stepping up his calls for more information. Today, he posted this, "Where's phase 2?" And alongside that was a picture of the Epstein files, phase 1. Now, the White House is doing all that it can to make this story go away. In fact, the administration is completely trying to change the subject. They'd rather talk about Trump's swollen ankles, for God's sake. And the Attorney General today went to Alcatraz, Pam Bondi, touring a 91-year-old former federal prison because of Trump's desire to transform that national park back into a prison. And following Bondi, the pro-Trump network, Fox News, California's Governor Gavin Newsom's office responding with a statement to that, saying Pam Bondi will reopen Alcatraz same day Trump lets her release the Epstein files. So, well, if you listen to the White House, though, there is no desire at this moment to release more information on Epstein.
Just because CNN is going triple down on this even makes me support Trump more. This is my highest support for Trump ever. Like when he was almost assassinated, when he was going from the courthouse to the campaign grounds, I supported him. You know, I believe he was the right person for the job and I voted for him. But now, like if I was supporting Trump on like 100% before, now I support Trump like 1,000%. 1,000%.
It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. They spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent.
Of course, all those questions still remain. Nothing? Of all the rich and powerful people who associated with Epstein over so many years, there's absolutely nothing for anyone to see? Let's go to Manu Raju live on Capitol Hill. I mean, Manu, what you are watching unfold on Capitol Hill, GOP versus GOP when it comes to a signature bill Trump wants to pass, and a whole lot of members of the GOP say, no way, not until we get Epstein?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a fight that's really been intensifying all week.
CNN would never disappoint you. They'd never disappoint you. They had Joe Biden in there for 4 years. Nobody had anything about Epstein files. Oh, all of a sudden, the Epstein files is so important. Here we go.
Long from Donald Trump's closest allies on Capitol Hill who are demanding more information are simply shrugging off all of Trump's attacks against them. Trump has tried to call them foolish. He's called some of them stupid. He called this a Democratic hoax. Many of them are simply saying, that's fine. You can say that, Mr. President, but we still want this information released. And Speaker Mike Johnson has to contend with the reality of the narrowness of his majority in the House. If any handful of members decide they want something and hold out their support, he has to listen to them and potentially cater to their demands. And that is exactly what is happening with this bill that Donald Trump wants passed by the end of this week, by the end of Friday the bill to cut roughly $9 billion in federal funding for foreign aid and for public broadcasting. But those holdouts want a vote, a separate vote on an Epstein-related matter, potentially to release all of the Epstein files. And that has been the source of the negotiations, intense negotiations that have been happening all day long. Now, Aaron, I am told that the Republican leaders plan to still have a vote tonight on this bill to cut roughly $9 billion. And there's some signs that there potentially could be a resolution with those Republican holdouts. And in a key meeting that is happening right now in the House, Democrats are pressing for information about any deal that was released related to Jeffrey Epstein. The Republicans on that committee so far have not divulged the details about a deal, about any separate vote related to Jeffrey Epstein. But as one of the key questions tonight in the Capitol, what did Johnson have to agree to on Jeffrey Epstein to get to Trump's agenda moving ahead as the plan to do so to get this bill passed by the end of the night, Aaron?
All right. Thank you very much, Manu. So I want to go straight out front now to someone in the center of all of this. That is the Republican Congressman Tim Burchett. He is a co-sponsor of a resolution in the House to release files on Jeffrey Epstein. I very much appreciate your time. So Manu's reporting, maybe there's a vote that will happen, that maybe Johnson has agreed to something on Epstein. You're obviously in the center of this. You're central to this legislation. Is there an agreement at this point?
No, ma'am, there's not. And honestly, if the Democrats were serious about this issue, they wouldn't have waited 4 years to bring it up. This is all politics.
Tell 'em, man.
We need to be
Tell
worrying
'em.
about the victims in this
Tell
thing, and
'em.
we need to worry about justice and these dirt bags that were involved with these kids, and we need to publicly ridicule them and possibly hang them. But the reality is there probably isn't a list. I've known a few criminals in my life. Heck, I've served in elected office with a few of them, and they don't keep a list of their criminal activities. And Trump's not on this list, because if he was, Biden would have released it the first day. So it's a lot of politics and a lot of hype. We just need to get to the bottom of it, ma'am. And
Man, I don't know how y'all don't have just discernment. Don't you see what's going on? This is favorable for the left. So CNN is going to peddle forever. Okay, they will peddle forever. And people in the chat saying, you're a sellout, you're a coon, you're whatever. Bro, who cares? Okay? Call me what you want to call me. I love the United States. Okay? I love the United States. Whatever you want to call me, call me. I voted for Trump. I will vote for Trump again if I have to. But of course, he can't do no third term. But if he could, I would vote for him. So whatever you want to call me, call me. And don't forget, God is the greatest.
unfortunately, in this town, when it's delayed, it's kind of like the Kennedy assassination. We're never going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, of course, we don't know who's on the list. And to your point, right, list is a euphemism, right, for knowing who Jeffrey Epstein was dealing with, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was sleeping with underage girls, who was financing all of those things we don't know.
No, let's correct that. Let me correct you on.
Yeah.
Ma'am, let me correct you on something. Who was raping underage girls? You do not have sex with an underage girl, ma'am. You rape them, and that is what this is about. So, we try to soften that, but that was a horrible act of violence against these young.
Well,
young
I agree with you.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you, and I happen to agree that we should know every single person involved. Do you think that Pam Bondi is listening to you at this moment, Congressman, that there's any chance that she's going to release the files, and in a way that you would have confidence on what's in those files?
I don't have a lot of confidence in her, ma'am. I think she's way out over her skis in this thing. She released that notebook, which was stuff that you and I would already know. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she didn't follow it. I think she took some bad advice. She's in the prime time, gets thrown in the middle of it, and I think she took some bad advice. But then when she followed it up with the list on my desk, and then there is no list, I get tired of that. One thing I think people ought to wonder about, though, is these flight logs, which are generally public record. But that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's a pedophile. That's why I think we need somebody in the legal community to oversee this, to make sure none of the kids' rights are violated. We don't want to see pictures of children. We don't want their identification, anybody that was abused. But if the person is suspected of a crime, dadgummit, we ought to have that information. And that's what it should always be about.
So I know that you have wanted to have Ghislaine Maxwell testify before Congress. And of course, while Jeffrey Epstein died before his trial, she is serving 20 years for her role in assisting him.
Yeah.
So have you gotten a response, Congressman Burchett, from the House Speaker Mike Johnson or from leadership saying that they're willing to hear from the one person who actually could answer all these questions?
I haven't yet, ma'am. I need to run into Chairman Comer. I haven't seen him yet in the last couple of days, but and you can call me Tim, by the way. But I don't think Comer's going to duck me out on this one. He's going to do what's right. He's a stand-up guy on these types of issues. He's a family man as well, like I am. So I think he's there. You know, ultimately, though, ma'am, I'm going to have to answer to my Creator on this issue. It's not the voters or even the president. You know, as a Christian, I'm not a very good one, obviously. I'm on the far end of the forgiven spectrum, but the Bible talks about how you treat the least amongst you, and that's Jesus talking, and that's some pretty strong medicine right there, ma'am. The least amongst us definitely are these children, and we need to get to the bottom of this, because first of all, we need to send a message to these godless dirtbags that abuse children that we're not going to stand for it. And second of all, we need to send the message to all the victims in the world, in this country anyway, that we are out there fighting for you. I've held the hands of people that have been molested and abused, and ma'am, they have a life sentence. They never get over it. Lifetime of guilt, horrible things. They do horrible things to their bodies, and it is just it's a horrendous thing. I passed some of the toughest laws in the country when I was in the state legislature. I know all about this issue.
And that is
relieve the pressure.
That was a Republican speaking. So, look, of course, nobody wants this PDF files just roaming about. But what people are hoping for is, especially the left, Trump is on the file. So you're so concerned about Trump that you're not actually wanting justice for this little girl. So it's just Trump. We've got to get Trump. Just like Letitia James. Vote for me, so I'm going to get Trump for you. You just want to get Trump. That's all you want to do. Get Trump. Get him. You don't even care. Get Trump. That's all you care about.
The Wall Street Journal published a piece with this striking headline. Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him bawdy letters for a 50th birthday album. One was from Donald Trump. Now, their friendship, you'll recall, went back decades. The article details a moment from 2003 and some of the letters that Epstein's one-time girlfriend and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, gathered for a birthday tribute album. According to the Wall Street Journal, pages from the album are among documents examined by Justice Department officials who investigated Epstein and Maxwell. The paper, citing people who have reviewed the pages. Here's the passage about then-citizen Trump's letter. Quote, this is from the Wall Street Journal. The letter bearing Trump's name, which was reviewed by the Journal, is bawdy, like others in the album. It contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker. A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. The letter concludes, happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Now, the president's denial. Quoting again from the Wall Street Journal, in an interview with the Journal on Tuesday evening, Trump denied writing the letter or drawing the picture. This is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story, he said. I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women, he said. It's not my language. It's not my words. The president also threatened legal action, saying, quote, I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal just like I sued everyone else. Joining me now with analysis, CNN contributor, tech journalist Kara Swisher, host of The Pivot, and on with Kara Swisher podcast. She's also the author of Burn Book, a tech love story. First of all, Kara, your reaction to this Wall Street Journal story?
Well, I think it's just the beginning, actually. It's the first story. I think there's probably more to come. I think as he doesn't release this stuff, people will start giving it to reporters, things will start getting out, and none of it looks good for Trump, including this story. Even if he denies it, saying we have things in common, Jeffrey, it creates a feeling, and especially online, that it gets amplified and really weaponized in a lot of ways. So it's not going to end here until he releases these files in some substantive way, which he seems resistant to do, and could be possibly for these reasons. It looks bad for him. Do
you think he's going to follow through on his threat to sue the paper?
Sure. He does that all the time. I think they've got this nailed down. I'm sure Rupert Murdoch didn't. I mean, obviously Emma Tucker's an amazing editor at the Wall Street Journal, but this had to have had approval by Rupert Murdoch or Lachlan Murdoch. And so I think they probably feel that they are very much locked down on this information. And again, everybody's going to be doing much more reporting. And that's the problem here, the drip, drip, drip. And the problem for Trump is he was friends with Epstein during his most heinous period, right, of behavior before he was arrested the first time. And they were very close, and that's obvious. There's pictures everywhere. And as more stuff comes out, especially that Trump doesn't have control of, the online reaction is going to be massive, especially among his supporters. And that's the real problem here. These people have been bred on conspiracy theories. He's been feeding a lot of them and getting them used to it. And so it's like, it's like feeding children tons of toxic sugar. Don't be surprised that they behave like this. And they're going to continue to do so because it's one of the bearing walls of the way Trump attracts his fans to him.
It's feeding them feeding your kids toxic sugar and then calling them stupid and weaklings for liking toxic sugar.
Which you made them.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then there's the Elon Musk of this all. We played the clip of him talking to Tucker Carlson earlier in a social media post on X, responding to Megyn Kelly's statement that the Wall Street Journal story is, quote, the dumbest attempted hit piece I've ever read. Elon Musk said, quote, yeah, the letter sounds bogus. What do you make of that, given how much Elon Musk has been posting about the Epstein files in recent days?
I don't know. I'm sure he doesn't know anything. I mean, these people just say things off the top of their heads. That's my experience. I think it's a beginning story, and I think they're trying to create a narrative here, and probably they have other stuff reporting they're doing. This would be my guess as an editor, that there's this relationship. There was a close relationship. That's really the problem for Trump is separating himself from Jeffrey Epstein, especially when his base is not just enamored. It's at the heart of. It's not like a little thing. It's a structural pillar of this movement. Is Jeffrey Epstein and all that he represents? So.
Well, it's also tied to the QAnon movement. I mean, it sort of is in that same petri dish. And obviously there's crossover with. I mean, it's part and parcel. Or I don't know if it's a subheading of the QAnon movement, but they're kind of linked together.
It is. Oh, no, the QAnon part is critical here. I mean, they have trained these people to think these things. Remember Hillary in the Comet Pizza basement and everything else? They have eaten this conspiracy theory for a long time, and Epstein is a critical character in it. And to make fun of them is a problematic thing, and to tell them that they don't know what they're talking about after feeding them this stuff, it is very much linked together. And, you live by QAnon, you die by QAnon in a lot of ways. I mean, I think online, this movement, you just go online and watch the reaction. It is not Democrats, although I think Democrats are taking advantage of a really dicey situation for Donald Trump. But it's mostly the base that is going crazy on all these sites. And if you look at the comments, if you look at some of the leaders, although some of them have pulled back, probably in fear of Trump, it's a real problem for him, especially as it gets amplified and weaponized online. And I think he doesn't have the power to stop that because it's at the heart of this online conspiracy world that is linked together in so many different ways and is incredibly powerful.
It's also interesting to me that President Trump is now calling this a hoax, a Democratic hoax, essentially. Yeah. It's something that's propagated by Democrats. Yeah. I mean, the hoax was Dan Bongino and Kash Patel on all these podcasts saying just saying stuff and pushing this and fanning the flames of this, I guess, for views, for for profit. And now they are in a position where they've actually seen this. I mean, Kash Patel, I think it was to Joe Rogan saying, or to Glenn Beck, the FBI director has the black book of Epstein and could release it right away. He's now the FBI director. I guess he's now the guy. The black book, which was published, by the way, a number of times in, I think, New York Magazine, online. I think Gawker did it years and years ago.
Yeah, I think that the problem is this is all linked. These people were all for it until they were against it. It creates a real feeling of unease among the followers. And again, Epstein is at the heart of it. And so the problem for Trump is that they will keep talking about this. And he is, factually speaking, they were friends for a decade or more, right? And they were social friends. And he was on the plane. There's lots of facts here that could be, look, maybe nothing happened, maybe something happened, who knows? But if he doesn't release the files, there's no way of removing himself from this controversy. And look, some people could have just gone to that island and left. I know a lot of people who did that. Some people could have just gone to dinner at his house.
You know a lot of people who did that, who went to the island and left. What in the world?
Left. You shouldn't, there are problematic issues here in this thing, and including fraud, like what is made up, what's not made up. This is so perfect for an online disaster for Trump, who has been up until now very good at communicating online. Whether you like him or not, he's real good at it. And so we'll see where it goes, but it's not going anywhere good as long as he suppresses things and doesn't release things. They're going to have to release something to get this story to go away, because it's not one of these 3-day stories that then just moves on. This one has staying power. And I said that a couple of weeks ago on Pivot, and I've watched these online groups, and this is what animates them.
Well,
whether
Julie
it's
K.
true
Brown,
or not.
Julie K. Brown, the reporter who, covered this
Amazing
story from the
reporter.
beginning. Incredible reporting on this for years. She pointed out to me last night, and we're about to talk to her again, that the autopsy report was never released. That's something it would seem could be put out.
They could, if they're trying to exonerate themselves. That's the problem. Here, what they're doing here is they're going to have to exonerate themselves for something we don't know. And so wouldn't it be good to show us? And the only, what people do in their mind is, well, if he's not releasing it, maybe something's there. That's how people react. And the problem for Trump is that there's enough pictures, there's enough plane rides, there's enough of this. And so if he's very interested in putting this thing to bed, as I'm sure he is, he's going to want this drumbeat to stop, because it only gets worse around this, because it's so animated by online conspiracy theories, which you're seeing the power of right now. And unfortunately, it's being brought to bear to Trump as opposed to him unleashing it, on others. They're eating
A
the
guy who's
cats,
been
they're
spreading
eating dogs.
conspiracy theories about others for years.
Correct.
There's an irony there.
Man, please. All right, here we go. Scott Jennings.
Not sure I saw this quite what this was coming, but first of all, just on the legal front, Ellie, the threat to sue over the existence of this letter, whether he himself wrote it or not, how credible?
Well, I'm sure he will sue. He has shown that he is ready, willing, and able to sue media organizations at the drop of a hat. If he does sue, it's going to be really tough, because the legal burden here is very high, because Donald Trump is, of course, a public figure, so it's harder to win a defamation suit. He really has to show two things. First of all, that the Wall Street Journal defamed him, that the statements here were damaging to him. That seems clear. The harder part, though, is going to be to show that they acted with what we call actual malice, meaning that they knew that what they reported was false, or that they were reckless as to its falsity. That's the really hard part to show. Wall Street Journal, they tend to know what they're doing. They tend to have their stuff buttoned up. So wouldn't surprise me if he sues, and would surprise me if he wins, not knowing the facts, but just knowing how high the legal bar is.
So Trump is saying, I didn't do this. But I think, to me, it's a separate question, Scott, whether this thing exists. And it seems that the Journal has evidence that it does, in fact, exist, and that it's perhaps among the many, many, many documents that are in the possession of investigators here.
Yeah, my reaction to reading this was 2003, before anything had happened, we know Donald Trump knew the guy. We also know he disowned him and kicked him out of his club. I was waiting all day long for this rumoring of a bombshell. This looks like kind of a dud to me. And look, the president says it's not. I don't know. But either way, this gives me like Kavanaugh yearbook vibes. My impression is Republicans are going to strongly rally around the president on this thing. He may have been facing some turbulence over the Epstein situation, but this is the sort of stuff that brings people to circle the wagons around him.
Just to be clear, Trump doesn't agree with you, because he's clearly very pissed off about this, perhaps very freaked out about it, because it's embarrassing.
I think this goes deep into the MAGA psyche and creates a cognitive dissonance. That is why we're seeing them revolt against him in this moment. He was supposed to be their guy who would go in there and do what the people would want and fight against the globalists who are pedophiles. Here's a perfect example of a globalist who is a pedophile. Trump told us, I'm going to out that guy in his client list. What happened? Now he gets in, he acts like everybody else who's protecting the globalist pedophiles. So how could you continue to think as MAGA he's going to protect us when he clearly didn't in this situation?
And Trump has also, talked about Epstein. Scott, you're making the point that, they were just friends. This was before he knew anything about Epstein's, alleged bad acts. But here's what he said in 2002 in a New York magazine. So this would have been a year before this birthday message. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy, he said over speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. This is all in the public record as well.
Look, I think two things here. One, I think if this was such a big deal and why it wasn't used against him long before when he was running for president, I believe the president on this one. I think he probably is not a guy that draws pictures. I know a lot of people that have gotten a lot of notes from him and they've never gotten a picture. They get a note from him and his signature that takes forever to sign. Like, I look at this and I sit there and I'm like, this is it? Like, this is the whole thing. Now we're talking about,
I don't know if he draws pictures of women, but we do
we're talking about pictures here.
Okay, I know.
We're talking about pictures.
We're talking about
the 22-year-old stuff.
We do have this picture that
you
he
got
drew.
it now.
Man, there it is. That's how good he is at it.
You got it now?
No, it's done now. Yeah, it's done.
$30,000.
MAGA's turning on Donald Trump.
This is going to kill him.
Look at this picture, folks. Look at the picture. He's done.
He'll never win.
He's done. His presidency's over. He should resign.
Abby, he'll never win the 28 election. He'll never win the 28 primary.
Never. It's over.
I'm just saying. Trump says in this statement.
It's so rare you got 30 grand for a picture.
He says, I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women. I don't know if he draws pictures of women, but he has drawn a picture in his life with a Sharpie, which is similar to what we are hearing about this image.
Look, I think, Abby, here is the bottom line. Whether or not he drew this picture, whether or not this was actually a letter that he, actually wrote or typed out or whatever it was with the weird picture, that he drew behind her and didn't draw behind it. The bottom line is that, to me, is somewhat irrelevant. This is someone who said infamously on camera that came out about 2 months before the 2016 election, I can grab women by the you-know-what, and he still won the election. So I think that kind of persona perhaps is baked in. I think the bigger issue here is that this has caused the MAGA base to kind of lose its mind. And the question is the MAGA base going to come back together, or is this a base that is fractured, that is significantly fractured?
Have you lost your mind, Scott?
Because people have been, your colleagues, the Charlie Kirks of this world, people you know very well, have been all over the place saying that they're very disappointed in Donald Trump.
Well, I should say that Charlie Kirk and Laura Loomer tonight have both said to other outlets that they don't necessarily believe that Trump wrote this or what have you. So they're starting to circle the wagons on this, which is what Scott suggested earlier.
The facts of Donald Trump's base are this, and we reported on this morning here on CNN. Since the Epstein business started, his job approval among Republicans has gone up. He's over 90% with Republicans. It's not hurting him with his base. I know you're a Democratic strategist, maybe not an expert on the MAGA base.
In his base have been very frustrated.
But look what's happening. He's gone up. Why? Because while we're all sitting here dealing with this nonsense, out in real America, he's signing legislation on fentanyl. He's talking about the AI future in Pennsylvania. He's securing the border. Big, beautiful bill. So his numbers are going up with Republicans. This is a fantasy that Democrats have been engaging in since January that Republicans would abandon.
No, Scott, do not.
Trump, it's not happening.
Put this on Democrats. This
Every
is something
night I
that the
sit here and
MAGA
listen to a
base.
Democrat tell me Republicans don't support Trump, and they do.
This has been whether or not you want to call it a conspiracy, whether or not you want to call it something that the MAGA base has cared about. This has been something that has been deeply rooted in the MAGA base for a long time.
The Senate is working late tonight voting on amendments to the president's legislation to formalize a portion of the Department of Government Efficiency's DOGE's spending cuts. Also now on the Senate calendar, legislation introduced by Missouri Republican Josh Hawley to reverse big Medicaid cuts in the president's bigger tax and spending bill, which Senator Hawley himself voted for. Today, Senator Hawley explained that vote to CNN's Manu Raja.
I liked all of that, but there are aspects of it I didn't like, and I think these future cuts to hospitals with Medicaid is a mistake. So I said when I voted for it, I said I'm going to try to reverse these. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Well, Senator Hawley, earlier today, I spoke with Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders about that and more just before airtime. Senator, when you heard that Josh Hawley introduced a bill to reverse some of the cuts to Medicaid that he himself voted for just 2 weeks ago, mostly focused on rural hospitals, what did you think?
Well, I think I live in a very crazy environment. That so-called big, beautiful bill, the reconciliation bill, is, in my view, Anderson, the most disastrous piece of legislation in the modern history of our country. And I'm not exaggerating. What it does, as I'm sure Senator Hawley knows, is it throws 17 million people off of the health care they have, Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. It makes massive cuts to nutrition.
Okay. Here we go.
A major sign that President Trump is feeling the heat of the controversy surrounding his administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Overnight, he authorized Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce, quote, any and all pertinent grand jury testimony related to accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Bondi immediately agreed to the president's request, which seems to undercut her own department memo that there was really nothing left to see related to the case. It could be months before anything is released, if at all, as grand jury testimony is heavily protected by law and remains subject to court approval. The testimony itself would only represent a small fraction of the material collected during the Epstein investigation. Now, the president's request, coincidentally or not, came just hours after a shocking report from the Wall Street Journal that in 2003, Donald Trump sent a personal letter to Epstein for his 50th birthday. The letter reportedly contained a hand-drawn sketch of a naked woman signed, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Now, the president has strongly, furiously, as we said, denied the existence of a letter and is now threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal and its owner, Rupert Murdoch. In the wake of all this, there is a lot going on, a lot changing over the last few hours. So let's get right to the White House. CNN's Elena Treen is there, busy to say the least. What do you see?
I mean, absolutely. And your question of whether the president asking for the Attorney General to turn over some of this grand jury testimony, or to publish it, I should say, is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that it's coming after that Wall Street Journal report. The president is very angry about this. From my conversations last night, just after that story had dropped, it's very clear that what we're going to see today and some of the, turning of the wheels on this Epstein case is going to be a result of that anger. Now, I just want to read for you what the president posted last night directing his attorney general to do. He said, quote, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. I do want to note as well, we did see Bondi shortly after respond to that post from the president, posting herself with a picture of the president's post saying, President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcript. So this is a huge deal, particularly among a lot of the president's supporters who have been wanting exactly this. This is the President Trump that they want to see. They want to see some sort of evidence. They feel like they deserve more information as it relates to the Epstein case. Now, of course, it's very unclear what this would actually show. It's also, as you pointed out, very unclear how quickly we actually will see some of this, given, with the courts, it's probably going to be a lengthy process, despite the Attorney General saying that she's ready to move the court tomorrow, as in today, Friday, to unseal some of this. So still a lot of questions on what this will look like, but I will say this is exactly what a lot of the president's, part of his base, part of his MAGA high-profile supporters have been asking for. They believe that they have a right to see some of the evidence and hard documents in this case, not necessarily, the publishing of these so-called files, but wanting really to see what more there is. We'll see if this actually ends up kind of, quenching some of that thirst from his supporters.
And Elena, very quickly, this Wall Street Journal report that the White House and the president vigorously denies, what exactly does it say?
Yeah, so this report, just to get into it, they report on what they call a body letter from Donald Trump. Now, this was a letter that was apparently written for Epstein's 50th birthday that was put into a broader book. And they say that the letter is framed by the outline of a naked woman and says the letter concludes, "Happy birthday. May every may every day be another wonderful secret. Now, as you pointed out, the president very harshly pushing back on this. We've also seen the vice president, J.D. Vance, as well as the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, all online going hard after this post. The president wrote on Truth Social, quote, "The Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter, supposedly to Epstein. These are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam, that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did. And now I'm going to sue his ass off, and that of his third-rate newspaper." So a lot in this, and we've seen a lot of other posts as well. John really trying to furiously dispute what the Wall Street Journal says was a letter from the president. We'll have to see where this goes, but I can tell you that people, again, here at the White House are very, very angry about this. And, you know, I think believing that they really want to go forward and suing the paper over this, John.
All right, no doubt we will hear more and hear more soon. I imagine Elena Treen following a lot of developments at the White House. Thank you so much.
The president is searching for an off-ramp to the controversy over the Epstein case, which began last week when the DOJ revealed they weren't going to release any additional information. And that infuriated a lot of the president's own supporters. But the president may now be throwing them a bone, ordering Attorney General Pam Bondi to release all pertinent grand jury material from the investigation.
There's no daylight between the president and House Republicans on transparency. And he's been very clear that he wants all credible information, credible evidence to be turned over to the people so that the people can decide. We trust the American people in their judgment. And we're for that. The president is for that. And there's different ways everybody expresses the same truth.
All right, joining us now in the group chat, Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN contributor and New York Times journalist, Noel King, co-host and editorial director of the Today Explained podcast, and Rob Bluey, president and executive editor of the Daily Signal. Good to see all of you. Good morning to all of you. Rob, let's start first with you. The president is forcefully pushing back on this, denying this reporting outright. He obviously wants to sue the Wall Street Journal. What's your take? Do you believe him?
Well, Caroline Leavitt went a step further, and she said that they wouldn't even show the president the image, the writing. So the Wall Street Journal apparently doesn't even have it in its possession. So I think that there are legitimate questions that the White House is raising about whether or not this is a fake document. Now, we don't know. I don't have any inside intel, but I will say this. I support Mike Johnson and what he has said about making these documents public. I think that it's important for the American people to decide and see with their own eyes what the government has in its possession. And I hope at the end of the day, the president realizes that that is what he campaigned on. That is what he will deliver.
Oh, come on. I just want to say, I mean, the idea that this is a fake document coming from the Wall Street Journal and their editor, Emma Tucker, that Rupert Murdoch, whose Fox News is one of the most, the biggest supporters of this presidency, that he would publish something that wasn't rock solid is absolutely, you know, it belies incredulity. And so I do not believe that this is fake. And I think it's going to cause an enormous problem for this president. Why? Because at every juncture, all fingers have pointed to Donald Trump in the Epstein matter. He had a relationship with Epstein. We know that he had a relationship with Epstein. And now this actually proves perhaps that this relationship went far beyond what the president himself has admitted to. And so it does cause a big problem. This has captured the popular imagination. You know, almost 70% of Americans believe that there has been some kind of cover-up. This is not a red issue. This is not a blue issue. This is an issue about power, the abuse of power, and this man who was at the center of a terrible sex trafficking ring, and the fact that the president of the United States might be implicated in that.
Yeah. Noel, like to Lulu's point, which I think is an important one, this has captured people's attention, imagination, however you want to describe it. It is something a lot of people out there are talking about. What is it about this? It doesn't seem like the president, and I think he's acknowledging this by now, saying release everything you can, but he wanted it to be done. And people just on both sides pushed back, even people in his own circle, Laura Loomer, Charlie Kirk, others who've been critical over this particular case.
I think Americans really
I think Americans are primed for conspiracy theory, right? Part of the reason that President Trump was elected was that many Americans feel like there is a deep state that is working against them, a government that is keeping secrets that they should, that they should be privy to. And President Trump campaigns on the idea that I am not part of that establishment. I'm not part of that corrupt establishment. You can count on me to tell you the truth. And for a long time, that really worked. The problem is he is so deeply enmeshed in this at this point that even if, I don't know whether what the Wall Street Journal has is real or fake, but I trust the Wall Street Journal's reporting. The president does not have an off-ramp at this point. I think he's going to be surrounded by this for another couple weeks at least until more information is released to the public. And even then, you ask yourself, at what point are people going to be satisfied that they've heard the whole truth? That's a pretty tricky thing when you're dealing with a conspiracy, right? These things, it's hard for them to die out.
And the Wall Street Journal reporting indicates this letter was sent in 2003. Donald Trump did this interview with New York Magazine in 2002. There was a profile on Epstein, and this is what he said about him in 2002. Terrific guy. Donald Trump booms from speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Rob, what does the president do now around all of this? What's his next move?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that Bill Clinton and others who had connections to Jeffrey Epstein have all said that they severed ties with him after the allegations came out and he was charged with the crimes. So I do think that it's important for us to acknowledge that it's not just Donald Trump. There are others, high-profile political figures that had a relationship or friendship with Jeffrey Epstein.
How can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files? That post by Elon Musk this afternoon gets at a serious question, prompted by MAGA fans, among others, after the Justice Department asserted in a memo that convicted sex offender and multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein did not blackmail high-profile clients, was not murdered before he was found dead in his jail cell in 2019, and in fact had no client list. Despite the fact that the very same administration officials are now asserting there is no there there, many of them were the ones ginning up the controversy before President Trump was reelected and while they were in office. The Justice Department memo, first obtained by Axios, also comes 1 month after the billionaire Tesla founder took to his platform X as his alliance with President Trump dissolved. Quote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason why they have not been made public," unquote. Musk deleted that post 2 days later, but the new memo has Musk posting this meme, among others. It's a guy putting on progressively more clown makeup with the text, "We will release the Epstein list. We just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk. There is no Epstein list," with full clown regalia. The desk part refers to a February clip. The list is on my desk. A February clip from Fox that was played of Pam Bondi. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
But here was Attorney General Bondi earlier today.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
Trump was asked about the memo today by a New York Post reporter, and he expressed indignation.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Mr. President, the reason people are talking about this guy is because people serving in the highest levels of your administration have been talking about this guy for years and talking about how the Epstein list needs to be released. Here's then Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance in October 2024.
everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Here's Kash Patel on a podcast just over a year before he became FBI director.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Dan Bongino, a former Secret Service agent turned right-wing podcaster, is now the FBI deputy director. Here he is on his show in February. He was named deputy director just a few weeks later.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go, ever. Ever.
Bill Clinton's spokesperson released a statement in 2019 saying that the former president, quote, knows nothing about the terrible crimes. We should note the presence of one's name in the files does not mean they were involved in any way in sex trafficking or having sex with any of Epstein's victims. Here's Alina Habba, now interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey. This is her in February.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking.
I'm shocked that none of that's been released. In February this year, Attorney General Bondi teased the imminent arrival of the Epstein files, and President Trump's eldest son, Don Jr., posted about the news, quote, LFG, an acronym for Let's Effing Go. A week later, the Trump administration invited a slew of conservative MAGA influencers to the White House, purporting to give them a first look at a batch of documents labeled the Epstein Files, Phase 1, but none of it was a smoking gun. The vast majority of the information had already been made publicly available. CNN's Evan Perez reported in March that Attorney General Bondi directed FBI agents, in some cases, to drop their work on China and Iran and focus on redacting the files before their release. Remember, Trump made part of this his platform. Here he is during the 2024 campaign.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
So what's really going on here? I mean, what's really going on? Well, experts such as our friend Julie Brown from the Miami Herald, who's been covering Epstein for years, say that the notion of Epstein having an easy-to-access client list is likely a red herring. And that's what the Trump administration is relying on, that there likely isn't a list per se. But they are also now relying on the fact that because it's MAGA influencers who often put forward so many falsehoods, legacy news media won't push the point, that while there might not be a list, there are certainly files that can be released. There's a trove of information that the Trump administration is right now refusing to share. Information that could well point to the powerful folks who availed themselves of the sex trafficking victims of Jeffrey Epstein. If you go, for example, to the FBI vault online, you can see that there are 22 files containing thousands of pages. Most of them are heavily redacted. Now, sure, of course, redact the names and identifying characteristics of the victims. But why not make the victim testimonies public? As Julie Brown points out, there's still so much we don't know from the investigations by U.S. attorneys in Miami and in New York, witness interviews in the U.S. Virgin Islands and New Mexico. Brown writes that there's still more evidence that hasn't been published, including, quote, Epstein kept video cameras in most of his residences, and Epstein's autopsy, nor the report of the investigation into his death, has been made public. So while there may not be an official client list to be released, as the administration is now saying, there's a lot of extra information that is not being made public, despite Trump's Justice Department basically now saying case closed. This isn't going to go away.
And Pam Bondi went on television and said, I have a videotape of kids getting abused. I followed this case closely, and I know a lot of the people involved, as I've told you. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. I didn't know that. Really? Thousands of children got raped? Yeah. Who raped them? Where are the rapists? Like, why aren't they in jail? This is the Department of Justice.
Yes.
That is so crazy. This is honestly one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just think it's very dangerous to play around with this stuff. Like, very dangerous.
Well,
I don't want a revolution, but if you wanted a revolution, this is how you would act.
All right, Jamal, what do you think hearing that from Tucker?
Well, first of all, Tucker is being dangerous by alluding to something like a revolution when we're talking about the MAGA people, because we know that MAGA forces have been willing to use violence in pursuit of their political aims. We saw it on January 6th. You know, Gretchen said something a second ago about is Trump covering for Pam Bondi. But the question also may be, is Pam Bondi covering for Trump? We just really don't know. Donald Trump has been very forceful. He's a great television performer. When the question of Epstein comes up, every time he dissembles, he attacks the reporter. Remember before, he'll release the UFO files, he'll release the JFK files. Will you release the Epstein files? Well, I don't know if we should, do that. Innocent people may get wrapped up in that. I just think something's going on here. We got to keep asking the questions until we find out what's really happening, and they should just release the files.
I mean, right. I mean, that seems to be the point, Gretchen. At this point, and this is something that has been spun up, right, by some of the very people who are now saying, I mean, when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino came out recently and tried to downplay the Epstein files, they were eviscerated by the MAGA base, right? And now this is putting the whole thing on steroids. Far-right activist Laura Loomer, Gretchen, we know Trump listens to her. She has been hammering Pam Bondi on social media. She posted, "How come we can't talk about what a dumb, lying bimbo Pam Bondi is? JD Vance, please encourage President Trump to fire Pam Bondi. She's a disgrace." So what do you hear when you hear this? I mean, look, Laura Loomer, we know, has had very specific, tangible influence on Trump on big decisions.
Yes, in national security, specifically in the last few months. I do think she has Trump's ear. So, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Trump seemed to be protecting Bondi today. But I think one other really important point is in this second administration, we have seen a lot of MAGA supporters of Trump come out and be totally against him on really big issues. And what I think is fascinating is that he can go after people who are in groups, like lawyers, like members of Congress. I'll primary you if you don't agree with me. But with these single influencers, he's not doing that. And I think that raises a huge question about whether or not he has the power to actually silence them.
Right. And Jamal, I guess the whole question is there really no there? Or is the question, who is covering up for whom?
That is the question. Listen, what is sobering is that Donald Trump, if this were normal times, Donald Trump, he's turned around on Ukraine, and there are people in MAGA who are upset about that. He was in this relationship with Elon Musk, who's now turned on him, who wants to start a party, and so that could maybe peel off people. Now we've got the Epstein files, or all these things that would normally take down a regular politician. Donald Trump seems to be able to survive these things. I mean, he's such a political force, it doesn't really matter. But what does happen is the people around him are the ones who catch the brick. And so the question for Pam Bondi is this going to limit her ability to either be an effective